Okay, we're almost done with CRUD. We've done create, we've done read, and now we just have to do update and delete. And the good news is you pretty much have now at least seen all of the basic machinery. We're just going to be putting it together in different ways here. When we did the create action, we saw that doing a create really amounts to two interactions when you're talking about a human-facing web service. There's getting the form to fill out, and then there's submitting the filled out form. And those are two different controller actions usually. And by the way, I'm going to point out, and we're going to come back to this in just a few minutes, that the idea that creating something is two actions, it's important to realize why that's an artifact of us doing a human-facing application. Right? If you're thinking of Rotten Potatoes as a remote service that manages movie information and reviews, then you would think logically creating a new movie listing is one action, right? It's here's some data to create a new movie, just create it and let me know if it succeeded. And what we're going to see in a moment is that with basically a one-line controller change, you can make the same logic in your app work for both a human-facing site where the user has to do two interactions to do a create, as well as a service-oriented architecture-facing site where it's a single action. And you can basically repurpose your code to do that really trivially. Having said all that, the edit update action is exactly analogous, that if I want to edit information about an existing movie, I got to do two things. I first have to get the existing information in front of me, usually in a form that already has the values pre-filled, and then I have to be able to submit the form with the modified information. So we're going to use the same technique in that the first action retrieves the form, the second action submits the form, and just as with create, at the end of our update action, we'll use a redirect, in this case back to the action that shows the movie details, rather than just having a view that says update successful and nowhere to go from there. Now what's different about this case is that when you're creating a new movie, the initial form should be blank, but if you're editing an existing one, it makes more sense for the existing values to already be filled in. So how would we do that? So the edit update pair is really similar to what we've seen before. The difference is in the action, the edit action, which is going to serve the form, is first going to grab the movie ID of which existing movie is being edited, and it's going to use that to populate this @movie variable so that when we first display the form, the existing information is going to essentially be pre-populated. And then the update action looks a lot like the create action, right? We're just going to grab the ID of the movie to be updated. This is a difference because before we were creating a brand new one. And we're going to call update attributes, which you've seen. We're going to pass that hash of values that the user filled out in the form, and a flash message and a redirect. So all of the same machinery, really, that applies to what we just did for the create action. The other difference is that where we were using a post to do the creation of a new movie, we're using a put to do the update of an existing movie. So first of all, why is that? And second, how could we even do that given that web browsers generally only support get and post, but not put? So what's going on there? Well, one reason here is that, again, Rails really is trying to say, think about building a RESTful app first, and then secondarily think about how you would make a human-facing interface for it. But during your design process, you really ought to be thinking in terms of RESTful actions. One way to distinguish different kinds of RESTful actions is a post versus a put. And it's becoming an increasingly common semantics that put is what you use to update something in place versus post is what you use to submit brand new information. It's sort of an emerging consensus. So it's no problem to have different RESTful routes whose only distinction is which verb they use, whether they use put or post. Now what about this second problem where web browsers can only generate either get or post actions, they can't generate puts? How do we do that? Well, happily, as it turns out, anticipating this very question, what happens in the Rails world if we actually specify method put, which is what we're going to have to do with this form, right? We're saying we want to trigger the RESTful action that updates in place existing information. But what actually happens here is that when HTML gets rendered from this, it will be rendered as a post, which the web browser knows how to handle, but there will be an additional hidden form field that is basically embedded in the form and is a trigger to Rails to say, this was supposed to really be a put, but web browsers don't know how to do a put, so on your way into the controller method, change the post into a put. It's kind of interesting. So the effect of all this is that in your controller action, you can ask which HTTP method was used to submit this form, and the answer is it was put, even though it really started out back in the web browser as a post. Again, why would you want to design Rails to support this behavior? It's because you're really designing a RESTful service interface, and you'd like the controller method to say, OK, I got a put and I got this verb. I know what that means. It means update. The only thing I really need to know is the result going to be visible to a human, or is the result going to another programmatic service? But I want the semantics of put to be the same, whichever one of those two it is. And this is kind of a build up to the fact that in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So given that you can take my word for the fact that the put gets changed to a post, the only other thing we haven't done is destroy, which is simplicity itself. And remember, we said destroy is an instance method. And the reason for that is you would think that you call, on a collection of movies, say destroy this one. But no, what you really want to do is destroy the instance because you want to give it a chance to clean up after itself. That's a topic we'll talk about more when we start doing associations and advanced Rails methods. But because destroy is an instance method, we have the same strategy where we can find the movie first based on the params hash. We can call destroy on it, and then we can include a little flash message to confirm that everything worked and redirect somewhere interesting. Right? So redirect is kind of this general mechanism for saying, I did what you wanted me to do, and rather than just show you a boring page that states that fact, I'll save you a step and take you back someplace potentially more interesting. But that's it. You've basically now seen all of the CRUD actions that you can do and the relatively small amount of machinery required to do them.